Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Lightworker Masterclass. I'm Michelle Hawk, and I know a handful of you already, actually all of you already, and I think Heidi is the only one that I haven't met in person before or somehow communicated with before. So I'm so happy to see you here today. And then if anybody else joins us later, awesome. And then for anyone else tuning in after the fact, welcome as well. I'm really excited to be diving into some of this work with you. I know that some of you have been present throughout the year as I've been offering Lightworker Academy classes. And what we're doing today is related, but we're zooming out a little bit. So just to catch you up in case you're not familiar, like what's Lightworker Academy, then you do have access to, if you're a part of Lightworker Portal, you have access to all of the content archives, all the past class recordings. And that is a curriculum of monthly free classes that I've been offering throughout the year. This curriculum based in Shamanic, Alchemical, and Advanced Energy healing techniques. So every month I've been picking one particular aspect to focus on and offering teachings and practices related to that particular principle. So today we are zooming out just a little bit because we have this thing called Lightworker Academy. We have this thing called Lightworker Portal. We have this training coming up in October, the 4-day training, which I know Kathleen is coming to. Others of you, you're invited if you want to come, and it's called I Am Lightworker. So today, again, zooming out a little bit, what is a Lightworker? Let's just talk about that. What does that mean? And have some conversation about different aspects of practice and different aspects, some of these foundational pieces of being a Lightworker. I know everybody here is a Lightworker. We're going to talk a little bit about what that entails. And then at the end of our time today, I do have an invitation for you. So if you're ready, how does that sound? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready and excited to jump in. Awesome. Okay. So we're going to start. Before we get going, I'd love for us to just take a few minutes. We're going to do a little brief meditation because I know we're all coming from wherever it is that we are. We're all coming from whatever energies we've been hanging out in. I started my day with a dragon session, so I am riding high on some super activated frequency here. But let's just all get on the same page. Okay. So go ahead and set everything down, set your journal down, whatever it is. And let's go ahead and take a moment to arrive in this moment that is now. Go ahead and close your eyes when you're ready. Mini meditation to align our frequencies. And go ahead and let's take a moment to arrive fully in the body with the breath, exhaling everything out. Deep inhale. And exhale with a sigh. Again, deep inhale to the belly, soft belly. And exhale with a sigh. Let's do 2 more just like that. Deep breath in all the way down. And sigh. 1 more deep breath in. And sigh. Letting that ha breath clear your energy, clear emotion, clearing frequencies, and helping you just arrive in this moment that is now. And as you continue to flow, finding the natural rhythm of your breath, washing in and out like waves, let's invite ourselves to soften into a space of receiving, into a space of connection, and into a space of remembering that we are a part of something bigger than ourselves. It's really easy in this world to feel isolated, to feel separate, to feel alone. But I invite you right now to remember that light that lives within you, that this light that illuminates your heart, this light also lives in others. And here we're gathering in community. Whether you're here right now live or whether you're watching later, you are here with all of us gathering in community of Lightworkers. So take a breath into this feeling, this connection. Feeling yourself begin to come aware not only of your own light, but also of this constellation of light. The light that we see all around us, knowing we have our energetic connections all over the world. We have people tuning in Mexico, in Ohio, in Washington, in Oregon, and of course others watching later. And let's allow ourselves to just tune into this constellation of light frequency. And as we do so, beginning to feel that alignment, that resonance. This alignment not only within our own personal path or personal energy, but also alignment between us and alignment with the path and the energies of Earth. Knowing that this is part of what it means to be a light worker, is to be in this connection, to be present with these vibrations in ourselves, in our communities, and with Earth. And take a breath into this awareness and let it go. Let's invite this feeling of connection and this feeling of resonance to continue to stay with us, feeling it fill us up from the inside out, illuminating us, illuminating our hearts, and bringing a smile to the face, as we're in so much gratitude for doing this work today and all days. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And with this connection, let's allow ourselves to maintain this feeling as we gently land back in the conscious mind, bringing all this vibration, this resonance back with us into the body, beginning to gently perhaps roll the neck, roll the shoulders, wiggle the fingers and toes, give a yawn, coming back. That was nice. How'd that feel? Good? Yeah, good vibes. Good vibe club. If there's anything that you feel called that you want to share from that, just go ahead and use the chat box. I'd love if there's any just energies that want to come through, then go ahead and share there. And we're going to shift gears a little bit because we have some things to talk about today. This is some really important stuff that we're looking at with this whole Lightworker frequency and what that means. And before we begin, I would really love to hear if you have any burning questions that you are thinking, okay, Michelle, if I get nothing else out of this class today, I would really love to have you address XYZ. So if you have any of those points, go ahead. Now's the time. Unmute yourself and let's have it. And maybe you don't have any of that. Maybe you're just open to receive, and that's okay too. So if you're open to receive, go ahead and just type like, I'm open in the chat box, just so I know you're aware of that's an option. And then if you do have any particular questions or like things that you really want to know, unmute yourself so I can hear what you got. Michelle is open. Okay, great. I have a feeling a lot of people are going to be like, I'm open. Whatever we're talking about is fantastic, and that's totally okay. Brianna, I'm open. Okay. Isn't that nice to declare though too? I am open. I am open to receive. I am open to being in whatever wants to show up. Ashley, I am open. Heidi, I am open. Stacy, an understanding of how unique lightworkerness is and what makes it a unique path. Awesome. I have a clarification point. And maybe if you want to unmute yourself, that's fine. Or if you want to type too, what makes it a unique path, meaning as opposed to other paths, or what makes, or within the aspect of lightworkerness. And I have a feeling we're going to get to your question, the unique expression of what it means to be a lightworker. Which or both?
The second, more the second. So if certain people are called or possess the abilities, etc., why,
Gotcha.
and what makes it unique? Like what is unique about it?
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, I have a feeling we're going to get there. And then let's also put a little bookmark there. So when we get to that part of our conversation, which is actually probably going to be coming up here pretty soon, then if we don't quite answer that, then please, let's ask that a different way. Okay. That's a good question. Thank you. Awesome. Ashley, I am open, but I thought of one question. The work of being a light worker and whether that entails shadow work. That's a really good question. And we're going to kind of come at that tangentially from the side because they are related, but they're not the same. And so let's just jump in. I feel like people are asking questions that I have on my agenda for today, which is awesome. I love it. Okay. It's like I'm psychic or something. Weird. All right. So to give you an idea of what we're talking about today, you're already asking some great questions that we're going to be getting into. We're going to talk about what it means to be a light worker. What is a light worker? What does that entail? Is it this, as Stacy's asking, is it this aspect of a certain frequency that people are called to and other people aren't? Does it entail shadow work? We're going to explore that a little bit. And then we're going to look at and let's remember here just for a moment, if you are familiar with the Lightworker Academy classes, we're not going as into certain practices today as we have been, although I do have a couple of pieces that I'm going to be pointing you out of. If you want to go back and review this and this, then that would be super helpful. So today is a little bit more, slightly more meta. We're going to look at some core foundations of your practice to support you as a light worker. So again, not necessarily going into the specifics, but these are really good things to have. And here are some additional resources for you. And then some of my favorite tools and practices, some of the things that I myself practice on the daily, pretty much. And my best advice to any light worker on the path. And then again, at the very end of our time today, I do have that invitation for you. I'll be letting you know a little bit more about what's up, and it does have to do with that 4-day training. So please stick around to the end if you're able. I know a couple of you messaged me that you have to duck out early, and that's fine, but know that there is something in it for you if you do make it to the end of class, or at least revisit the recording before the end of the day. Okay, so what is a light worker? Any thoughts? Let's popcorn style this just for a minute. If you want to type into the chat box, what do you think of when you think of light worker, or just unmute yourself? What associations do we have with that already? Ashley brought up something about shadow work, right? What else we got? This is interactive. This is not this new.
Hi, it's Ashley. Yeah, what is a light worker? That's a great, simple yet profound question. I think it's somebody who incarnates to be of service to not only their own soul and for their own soul expansion, but in aid to humanity to help raise the vibration, towards ascension even. But, kind of recognizing that we are all one, but that the hard work starts within first.
Okay.
And so.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm hearing a lot of points there, and that's great. Thank you. So I'm hearing be of service not only to our own soul, working on behalf of humanity and of Earth, working to raise the frequency of Earth, ascension, I heard in there. Awesome. Okay. What else do we associate? I see Heidi says compassion. Michelle says enlightened worker. Cool. Okay. Anything else coming up? This is all great. Chat box is a good place for that. Are we kind of like, I have no idea. I want to see what Michelle says. Is anybody in that boat? I like what Michelle said about enlightened worker. Okay. Because I'm going to tell you my definition of a light worker. I'm just curious what you're saying first. So this, I do want to break apart a couple of pieces, because I know on my copy and in the way that I communicate and in the way that other people communicate, even in some of what Ashley's describing, there's this connection between light worker and healer, and that they're not the same thing. So I want to be really clear, as light worker does not equal healer, but a healer is one expression of being a light worker. It's not the only expression of being a light worker. And I think that comes through in my language because I am a healer and because that is something that I do. And I work with a lot of healers. But let's just, for the intents and purposes of this conversation, light worker does not equal healer. And even if you are receiving healership training, that is, again, kind of this one facet of light workerhood, light workerness. But, and it is a really supportive facet, but they're not the same. So my definition of a light worker, we got some responses, but I feel like people are kind of like, I want to know what you're going to say. My personal definition of a light worker, this is kind of, again, keeping it even more simple. So Ashley, I love where you were going with that, and that's awesome. I would say, let's even keep it more simple than that, right? So someone who serves love by working on purpose with universal life force energy to create harmony and light. Oh, I want to see what Stacy said. Stacy says, born through understanding and advancing the soul growth of self and others. Awesome. Born through understanding and advancing the soul growth of self and others. Yeah, that's great. Okay. I'm going to say my definition again, because we're going to break it down a little bit. There's some important pieces in there. Okay. I see people writing. Awesome. So again, I'm claiming this as personal definition of light worker. You are totally invited to adopt this if you want. Someone who serves love by working on purpose with universal life force energy in order to create harmony and light. Do we need that one more time? Yes? Okay. Someone who serves love by working on purpose with universal life force energy in order to create harmony and light. We get it? Great. Okay. So I want to call your attention to some aspects of that. And this definition is very particular, and you'll see why. So first of all, someone who serves love, right? And I think we can sort of collectively agree. We have kind of our general, completely broad strokes generalizations here. We have people in this life who either serve love or they serve fear. Just generally speaking, and what they do either creates more love or creates more fear, right? And I know we all know people in both of these camps in our lives, but our first generalization is, do they serve love? Okay. Secondly, working on purpose. This is very important because a lot of people are loving people, and maybe and we all have light. Like, let's not pretend for a moment that people don't have this light, right? So this is a little bit part, Stacey, of what you were asking about. Does everybody have this? Everybody has this potential within them. A lot of people don't do it on purpose, right? There's a lot of just, kind of moving through the world. And this is where we look into some of these aspects of sovereignty, and we look into these aspects of claiming and being in creatorship of our path, right? Are we stepping into this, and are we actively choosing it, or are we passive in our lives? Light workers actively choose it. They're working on purpose with universal life force energy, with spirit, with love, with God, with whatever you want to call it, but they're working on purpose intentionally with energy for a specific purpose. And that specific purpose is to create harmony and light. And this is the third piece. So we have serves love on purpose to create. Creators. Light workers are creators. They're actually generating a frequency. It's not just about allowing. It's not just about channeling. It's not about being in surrender. All of those are part of it, but it's actually how are we, through our embodied lived experience, creating a frequency, creating harmony, creating light, creating life. So those are kind of our three very important pieces of this definition I want you to pay attention to. Serves love, on purpose, creates. Does that make sense? How's that feel? Sound pretty good? For the purposes of our work together, this is what it means to be a light worker. So nowhere in there, you might notice, does it say any way about how that has to happen, right? Being a light worker, it's not about the how. That is completely open to interpretation. So this is where we get to look at, okay, well, what are the faces of a light worker, right? And so I can offer examples from myself and from my students and my clients. I would say about probably 50%-ish of my students and clients are healer practitioners. And that's partly who's drawn to me because I'm a healer practitioner, right? So I work in energy work, I work in shamanism and alchemy, and you know, I work on people to move energy. So I have a lot of people come to me who do that, and that's their yoga teachers, they're Reiki healers, they're shamans, they're death doulas, they're even, I would even put people in the medical field in this. So nurses, I have naturopaths, I have acupuncturists and Chinese medicine students, Qigong practitioners, all of these people I group under healer practitioners. And even within healer practitioner, the spectrum is vast, y'all. There's a lot of different faces of what it means to be a healer practitioner. And then I have the other 50% or so of my people who are not healer practitioners, but they are still light workers. They are still serving love on purpose, by working on purpose with universal life force energy in order to create harmony and light. And these people are interior designers. They're project managers in a city planning office over on the other side of the country. They work in corporate America. They work in, I have a CFO of a nonprofit. I've got a paralegal person, right? And I've got Kathleen, that's her right there. I didn't want to like name you personally, but you're like, that's me, right? And I even an author. I have people who are not employed and are full-time moms. I have people who are I guess yoga teacher is a healer practitioner, but like essentially running a yoga nonprofit, right? Or traveling the world, or people who are taking space and not working at all and just simply being present in their own process. And they're all light workers too, right? So again, the how we are light workers is completely up for grabs. And yet if we're looking at light worker frequency is, again, those people who serve love on purpose by working with energy to create harmony and light. Okay, so Stacy, we're getting at your question here, right? So to go into that a little bit further, is this only for certain people? No, this is for anybody. This is for anyone who is choosing to be in active contribution. And again, this is looking at the creative and the on-purpose aspect. So creative, generative, value adding. How can my life be giving and be amplifying and be more loving, more creative, right? And we have a lot of people who hang out in the love vibes, but they're not generative, right? Do we know people like that? And there's a difference, right? Like you feel it of like, oh, people who are hanging out in the love vibes, but maybe it's from or maybe they've had their spiritual awakening, but they're still in a lot of victim energy, right? Or maybe they are, in the spiritual community, but there's a lot of passivity, right? Or, oh, it's all about surrender. That's part of it, right? But how can we be active participants in the process? And that's where I think this really makes a distinction. And remember, it's not a light bringer or a light beer, it's a light worker. We're doing shit. We got a lot to do here, people, and we got to bring it in a big way. So, and I'll just quick check in. Stacy, did that answer your question? Did we get all aspects of that? Okay, awesome. And I think there's, I see almost, I'm kind of wanting to go off on a tangent, but I'm not going to, but I think that would be really cool to look at, well, what is that process like of claiming our light workerness? And how does someone go from being in this, non-activated state into being a fully empowered light worker? And I see that being like potentially like its whole own class series, quite honestly. So I'm just recognizing that it's there, and I'm recognizing like, ooh, I feel really drawn to work with that. So, but not today. And then Ashley, let's touch upon what you were asking around working with shadow. So this is where I see light workers do work in the shadow because that's part of the deal. We just have to, right? Like we have, if we're looking at our definition, someone who works on purpose with universal life force energy. Universal life force energy includes shadow. So just if you are working with shadow, it doesn't mean that you're not a light worker. However, the difference is there. I do see shadow workers being particularly a certain group or a certain calling of people who are called to transmute and transform and process shadow through the body. Those who are working with underworld initiation, those who are working within certain shamanic realms, those are who are working within particular classes of beings and deities. I do see that as a different. Or perhaps a subset of light work. So I think that is also, we have kind of these two pieces. I think that's also kind of a different class topic. So I just want to like touch upon it briefly and say, yes, and it's complicated. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay, awesome. Any questions so far? How are we feeling about that? We feel good about what a light worker is. We're all light workers, P.S. We're all here, we're doing it on purpose, right? And anyone can be a light worker. Some people choose to, some people don't. Any questions, comments, epiphanies? No? Okay, go ahead and use the chat box too if there's anything in particular that you feel called to share or ask. So looking at core foundations of our lightworker practice, right? If what it means to be a lightworker and if who we are as lightworkers is indicated through we are serving love on purpose, or serving love by working on purpose with energy, with universal life force energy, with the intention of creating harmony and light. Okay, what do we need to do that, right? I mean, that's kind of a big job right there. So this is where we look at the core foundations of that are starting with the internal and the external. Ashley was saying in her little share, right? We have to start with the internal first, but looking at the internal environment, how are we serving love and creating health and harmony and light in the internal environment. So through personal practice and through personal process, and the external environment. Right? And the external environment is totally up for grabs, whether it's, within our families and partners, whether it's within our community, our home, our global society, within our organizations, whatever it is. So we have kind of the internal aspects of being a light worker, and we also have the external aspects of being a light worker. This is really, really important, right? Because let's remember, light workers are not bliss ninnies. And I really love that term. And if you haven't ever heard that before, I will break this down for you. Bliss ninnies are the people who just trance out and all they do is meditate. And that is their version of working their spiritual practice. Not here, right? Light workers are here to not only do this work for themselves, but to also bring it out into the world. And again, you do not have to be a healer practitioner to do this. It can take whatever form it wants. It can take the form of volunteer work. It can take the form of, being kind to people or raising children or, working in workplace office dynamics, or maybe you do work on people or do sessions or in your conversations with your friends, whatever it is, having the internal balanced with the external expression of being a light worker is really important. So we have kind of these two questions, and you can ask yourself these questions. I think, in fact, they're really helpful guiding questions of in what way or ways, specifically, how am I serving love by working on purpose with energy in order to create harmony and light in myself? And then the next one is, so essentially like asking the definition as a question, in what ways am I serving love by working on purpose with energy to create harmony and light in the world or in others? Just make a list, right? Just look at what are you already doing that is an expression of your light workerness. How are you already serving love and creating harmony and light internally? How are you already serving love on purpose and creating harmony and light externally? So we have kind of these two realms that we're looking at. Our next piece of what it means to be a light worker and the foundations of our practice as light workers is looking at all the levels, right? So again, light workers are not bliss ninnies. We don't just sit around meditating all day. We actually do shit, get shit done, right? So light workers are working not only on the energetic realm, but also on the mental emotional realm and on the physical realm. We have a lot of, there's kind of a temptation, and I see this in certain parts of the spiritual community, and I see this in some people, and it's this whole almost the illusion of energy is enough, And like to a certain extent, yes, energy is enough. Energy is all there is. But the reality is that we live in human bodies and we chose to be here on earth. And if we are not also acting as light workers within a measurable, tangible, physical capacity, we're not doing our job. We're not serving on purpose in the fullest extent of our creation. So here's where I'm going to insert a little bookmark. In case you missed it, go back. I really, really recommend going back to the 3 Essentials of Alchemy for Lightworkers class, which I believe was the very first class of this year. And it's talking about the alchemical principle of sulfur, mercury, and salt. And I know that might mean absolutely nothing to you right now, but I really recommend going back to look at it because we talk about the energetic, the mental, emotional, and the physical aspects of our existence. So light workers work on all 3. In essence, what are you doing for your energy? What are you doing for your heart and mind? What are you doing for your body and your environment? And again, out in the world, what are you doing for the global consciousness? What are you doing for communication and empathy and emotion? What are you doing for the structures and systems of society and the earth, right? So light workers work on all of these levels. And again, remember, this class is less going into specific techniques and more zooming out broad strokes, okay? So there's a reason we're not talking about, well, how do we do that? That's what all the other classes are for, okay? And so in regards to that, we're talking about these 3 levels, and I always come back to this kind of when in doubt, do something with the body, do something with the breath, do something with the energy. And so Kathleen, I think you saw this, you were in the half-day training that I did back in July, right? We talked about, okay, as light workers, and we're working in these 3 layers of existence. We're working in the energetic, we're working in the mental, emotional, we're working in the physical, right? And so knowing that, again, on the internal and the external levels. So when in doubt, do some practice, and you're wanting to shift the energy, you're wanting to create harmony and light, you're wanting to work on purpose with universal life and life force energy. Step number 1, do something with your body. Whether it's shaking or dancing or yoga or running or gardening, do something with your body. Number 2, do something with your breath. And actually those kind of go in conjunction together, right? But use your breath practice, whether it's a particular form of breathing or whether it's just taking some really deep breaths, whether it's cleansing breaths or your alternate nostril breathing or pranayama breathing, whatever it is, something with the body, something with the breath. Number 3, do something with your energy. So clearing your field, whether you do cord cutting practices, whether you're doing a particular meditation, whether you're doing affirmation work, whether it's a visualization or a journey practice, whatever. Do something with the body, something with the breath, something with the energy. And that will help you on all 3 of those layers, and you're doing that internally, and then you can do that externally. So if you are needing to, bring some light, create some harmony, and if this is in the workplace, right? Okay, do something with the body. Have everybody stand up. Do something with the breath. Have everybody take some deep breaths. Do something with the energy. Internal smile and think of your favorite memory and just blast it out into the world. Great, awesome. You just did a light worker practice in an office full of people, for example. Does that make sense? Kind of the core foundations, really what I want you to take away from the core foundations are internal and external, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. We got it? Okay, any questions or comments thus far before we get into some of my favorite tools and practices and some recommendations for you? I think people are writing. Okay, if you're all good and you're excited and ready for more, just go ahead and type in the chat box like thumbs up or yay or something, or light workers rule, just so I know. I saw a thumbs up from Kathleen. Yes. Animo. Okay. Heidi, appreciate what I'm learning. Thank you. Awesome. I'm so glad. Jessica says, yay. Michelle says, yay. Okay, great. I love that. Yay is the declaration. Jamie says, smiley face. Okay, awesome. We're ready to go, I think. Okay. So some of my favorite tools and practices. These are, and in all honesty, I have a lot of favorite, quote, favorite tools and practices. I think I picked 3. I picked kind of one for each layer because these are things that I use very, very often. These are some of my go-to practices, and I think they're some of the most effective practices. And you'll see, how they work again on all 3 of those layers. So in terms of working on the physical plane, and again, this works internally and externally, right? But I would say one of my favorite tools and practices for working on the physical layer is shamanic embodiment and corporeal intelligence. So what that means, that's essentially a fancy term for saying tuning into the wisdom of the body and tracking and moving energy with intention through the physical layers. So shamanic embodiment, there are some particular forms of shamanic embodiment, moving in certain shapes and patterns and through centers in the body in order to have a specific energetic effect. And corporeal intelligence is essentially using your body as a pendulum or as a barometer in order to track and receive information, intuitive information. So those would be, that would be my kind of number one. I do that every single day, y'all. Like this whole tuning into the body wisdom, this is on the daily practice and moving energy through the body. It's, and granted, let's keep in mind, I've been doing this for over 15 years. So I have a lot of experience of having it be really natural. And this is the sort of thing where it happens without even thinking about it, right? Like, oh, okay, so there's, I'm working with a client or I'm in a conversation or something's coming up or I'm stuck in traffic, right? Okay, do something with the body. Move energy through the body for the purpose of creating harmony. Okay, it's effortless. And it can be for you too, right? These are really, really important tools and they're fun, right? Because our bodies hold so much energy. Our bodies are our first line of interacting with the world and interfacing with people. So using shamanic embodiment and corporeal intelligence gives you the ability to track and rapidly move energy through the physical layers, both for yourself and then also for others or for your community, your environment. Right? Because we're all earth-based frequency. So if there's something that needs to move, you can move it through you, or you can move it through the body, either your body or other people's bodies very easily. Okay. That one, there is a class recording on that. Actually, I think there might be 2 separate class recordings called The Cosmic Keys of the Universe. That's one on the shamanic embodiment. And then I believe there's also one called Body Wisdom or Corporeal Intelligence. So that's another 2 hours of class time that you have there on those alone. Number 2 of my favorite practices would be emotional alchemy. Now this one is working with emotion, not just about releasing emotion. There's a whole lot of school of thought about releasing emotion and being free of emotion and not being a prisoner of emotion, all this stuff. And I would say yes, and. So emotional alchemy is not just about releasing that, it's about harnessing the raw energy of the emotion and transmuting it into life force. And that's where the alchemy piece comes in, because we're using principles of alchemical philosophy, which is the mystery school of transformation. And working with, and I guess I'll share with you, I had a really cool experience with anger recently, as in like last month, where I had this, can I repeat that? Can I repeat what? The emotional alchemy part? Yes. Okay. So emotional alchemy, not just about releasing emotion, but instead about harnessing the raw energy of the emotion and transmuting it into life force. Because emotion is energy, right? Emotion is at its most basic fundamental level, emotion is just pure energy. But the way that, it kind of fucks with us when we're having the personal experience of anger or sadness or grief or jealousy or whatever it is, right? Because it lands within the body in a weird way, and we read all sorts of story into it. You got it, Ashley? Yeah, that's good. Okay. We read all sorts of story into it, and we can make it mean all sorts of things that doesn't actually mean. So with this, again, emotional alchemy, it's not just about like, okay, receive the message. It's part of this. Like, this is part of it, is receive the message of the emotion, move the emotion through the body, and move on, right? But true working within the magical principles of emotion is around how do you release the story, release the parts that you're putting on top of it, and just capture that raw energy and turn it into life force. So again, this experience I had last month with anger, it was one of the most knock my socks off powerful experiences I have ever had working within this particular realm. And the short version of this story is I don't tend to get really angry. Like I feel like I hold my boundaries fairly well, and I'm okay at like, okay, well, if something comes up, then I deal with it, right? And so it takes a lot of edge pushing for me to get to that level of angry. And in this particular circumstance, like I was breathing rage fire. I was so angry. And I was looking for all sorts of distractions of how can I leave this situation, and reading into the story, right? Like this person did blah, 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 and I'm so angry because X, Y, Z. And as soon as I was able to not go into this, I was able to release the story. I was able to step away from the distraction or like trying to distract myself from it. And I stopped even reading into the anger part of it. And I just tuned into the raw frequency. And the raw frequency was incredibly activated and incredibly powerful. And I felt like I was high. I felt like I was just in this total, like blown out euphoric state of just being present with the sheer volume and the frequency of energy that was available to me. And from that, I was able to transmute that, and I was able to claim it and move it into the body within a particular practice. And I felt so alive and so vital. And I was actually really happy. I was so just lit up and alive from transmuting this anger. And it wasn't pissing me off anymore. I didn't feel bent out of shape. I didn't even feel honestly that angry anymore. I was just really, really activated. And so that's where, this is again, I'm just so fascinated with how so much of our emotional experience is like, oh, I'm angry at this person, or, oh, I'm, sad because blah, blah, blah. And emotional alchemy is really about how do we, again, completely separate from the story and just use that emotion in a super powerful way to capture it and to be fueled by it in a good way, in a healthy way. So that is, there is a class on emotional alchemy. I will tell you right now, some of the stuff I just described is not in there because that's sort of the advanced, like 300 level emotional alchemy practice. But there are some of the other practices that set you up for the foundation to start doing more of that. So there is an emotional alchemy class recording up in Lightworker portal. Technique number 3, or one of my favorite tools and practices, number 3, would be working with soul contracts and agreements. And again, this one happened, I work with this all the time, both for myself and for my clients, for other people, but working within the realm of what is our soul contract and what are our soul agreements that we have personally with spirit, with each other. It informs all sorts of stuff about the way that we show up in the world. It informs the types of patterns that we exhibit in our behavior, in our relationships, in our communication. And it can be incredibly illuminating if you have, something that you haven't been able to shift, or like, you have a particular type of relationship pattern that isn't super healthy, or you have like beliefs about money, or you have a pattern of or a tendency where you always seem to end up in the same sort of job dynamic, and you're like, what the fuck is happening? Like, why does this keep coming up? And then looking at the soul contract and the soul agreements is a really good way to identify if you have certain codes or frequencies that are informing your experience. So that one is really, really powerful to be able to go in and learn, okay, what is your energetic patterning? And how can you make changes as necessary in order to have a different result on the earth plane? So it's essentially like, here's the experience. We have the evidence on the earth level of something isn't working, or I'm not in agreement with living that soul contract anymore. And you go in and do work with the soul contract, and then your earthly experience changes. So that one's a lot of fun. And that is, I think I have an audio recording or a class from last year. I don't think I have one, or maybe from December 2017. I think I have a soul contract class recording, but not within this year yet so far. Any questions about all of those? I mean, I guess that's only 3 things. So the shamanic embodiment and corporeal intelligence, emotional alchemy, soul contracts and agreements. Questions, comments, thoughts? Does that sound fun? Does that sound helpful? I think it's super fun. I love nerding out on this. The emotional alchemy one is really interesting, Ashley. Yeah, it's powerful. It's really, really powerful. And I would say it's most of what I see in the world that relates to emotion doesn't look at it from that perspective. And that's a specific thing that is unique to alchemy, that looks at harnessing that energy and transmitting the energy. To think you can take anger and reach bliss. Oh yeah, it blew me away. It was the sort of thing where I theoretically knew it was possible, but I hadn't ever experienced it yet. And then it happened, and it was just this euphoric, oh my God, I am so alive and everything is perfect feeling. It was crazy. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Are we good? Any other questions? Let's go ahead and have a yay or a smiley face if we're ready to move on. Thumbs up from Kathleen. Okay. And how to do that is on the class. No, that part is not in there. That's what I was saying, of that particular process is very unique to alchemy. And so there's it has a lot to do with moving energy in a certain way. So that's something that I get to more actually in the I Am Alchemy course. But the emotional alchemy class does have some of the foundational principles that will help you get set up to relate to emotion in this other way. So start with the one that's there. And then if you are, and just actually putting it out to all of you, the I Am Alchemy course starts, or the next year of it starts in March of 2020. So if that's something that you feel called to do, then we can talk about that. Let's see, in the class. Michelle says smiley face. Ashley, got it, no problem. Brianna, thumbs up. Okay, great. So my best advice to any light worker, it's really, kind of just a couple of pieces, and it's very simple. It might seem, you might hear this and be like, oh, really? That's it, Michelle? Like, that's the most obvious thing in the world. And yet most people don't actually follow this advice, y'all. So you're going to hear it anyway, because it's that important. So my number one piece of advice to any light worker, and remember, you're all light workers. Our light workers are someone who serves love by working on purpose with universal life force energy in order to create harmony and light, okay? My advice to all of these people out there, number one, cultivate resilience, AKA get really good at being uncomfortable. So the better that you can be and the more comfortable that you can be feeling, and I mean, how uncomfortable do you think I was sitting in this rage fire? Again, like I can count on one hand the number of times I've been that angry in my entire life. It was very uncomfortable. But because I was willing to actually sit in it and not distract myself and not try to go into story and change the circumstance, then I was able to do that level of work. And years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do that. That is, bless you, that is by cultivating resilience and being okay with the feeling of being burned alive. It's not fun, but it lets you do all sorts of other stuff, right? Imagine, moving energy in this big way, and light workers, here's the other thing is, we're doing a lot of work. We're processing other people's energy for them. Often that happens. We're holding really high vibrational frequencies. We're working changes on the earth plane. Most of that is not comfortable stuff. So if you want to have a very easy and comfortable and fun life, like maybe don't be a light worker. But all of that to say, if you are willing to just practice stretching yourself a little bit and holding more frequency, holding more light and holding more energy and just being really deeply in service to love, resilience is going to be your best friend. And then it means you get to do all this other cool stuff. Okay, so that's piece number one. Piece number two is cultivate healership tools for your personal practice. Even if you are not a, quote, healer, there are tools and practices. All 3 of those things that I mentioned to you, or actually I guess there's like 5 things that I mentioned to you. So working in shamanic embodiment, corporeal intelligence, emotional alchemy in itself, soul contracts, and working with soul codes and agreements, all of those are healership practices. They all fall under the realm of healer stuff. And yet you can use them in such a way that has absolutely nothing to do with being a healer. So this is where even if your expression of being a light worker is not called, or you are not called to be a healer practitioner, it is really, really helpful to just learn that stuff anyway for your own personal process, so that you can have the tools then to work behind the scenes. So for example, one of the people that I mentioned, the project manager in the city planner office, she's one of my alchemy students this year. And she, as of right now, is not interested in using this work for anybody else. But what is happening and what's helping her is she's learning all of these alchemical principles and philosophy. She's learning healership practices, and it's informing her personal life with her family. It's informing how she shows up in the office, how she holds herself, and how she's able to be much more effective and create change, specifically in her realm, working within environmental stuff. And she's using her healership tools in a non-healery way. And it is blowing her out of the water how effective it is. So piece of advice number 2, learn healer stuff anyway. It's really helpful. Piece of advice number 3, receive support and training. And I guess that's kind of related to this. But having community, having a mentor, right? And remember, even if you're not officially hiring a mentor, but having this connection, right? Like we did in the meditation at the beginning, where we're all connected to this constellation of light frequency. It is really important, because otherwise we can feel really alone really quickly, right? Has anybody ever had that feeling? I definitely have, where, oh shit, I'm doing all this stuff by myself. There's nobody else out there who's doing this work, right? If you're not raising your hand, you might be lying. I'm willing to bet you have felt alone, and that's okay, right? But remember, we're out there. We're all out there. So whether it's, you find friends that you can connect with about this, Jessica says, yes, raise hand. Awesome. Yeah. Right. Whether you're finding friends or community to connect with about this, whether you choose to work with a mentor or a teacher in an official capacity, finding support is really, really important, because otherwise it is crazy making. Okay. So those are my 3 most important pieces of advice. Number 1, get really good at being uncomfortable. Cultivate your resilience. Number 2, actually learn healer practices, even if you're not interested in being a quote healer. And number 3, find support, find training. Okay. Any questions or thoughts about all of that? Ashley says, yep, I left a stable lawyer job to listen to spirit and to go to the jungle. It gets lonely. People think you're crazy, except for light workers. Yeah, right? Because you are serving, you're doing this work. So finding your people is really, really important. And here are your people. P.S. All of us here. Any other questions or comments? Or shares? Does anyone want to unmute themselves and just share something that you're getting out of this class? What are you getting out of this class so far? I mean, we're almost done. What have you gotten out of this class? Anything? Yeah, Kathleen. There we go.
I just wanted to say, a lot of this, I've been through a lot with you, and a lot of this is somewhat basic, but what I'm here for today, even if I've learned a lot of this stuff before, is because I find it really helpful to keep it in your field, especially for someone who doesn't have a job working, with this stuff, is that I go to every training I can, because it keeps it on the forefront of my brain and keeps it in my field.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. And whether you are, whether this is all very familiar to you or whether this is brand new, right? Continuing to expose yourself to it and continuing to engage with, I like what you said about keep it in your field, keep it in the forefront of your mind, keep it in your community. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, I would love, Jessica says you mentioned some shadow stuff today. Yes. Oh, you're messaging me privately. Oh, well. Okay. I did mention, I think that might be why I stopped in. I mentioned some shadow stuff today. Well, I did mention to hear it. Okay, so we did talk about a little bit of shadow stuff. I don't think I said that for this class because, yes, light workers work in the shadow, but that is a very different, and we did talk about it a little bit at the beginning. I don't think you had joined us just yet. So we're looking at primarily this broad strokes light worker stuff today, and then the shadow work is under a slightly different umbrella. Yeah, Lightworker and Shadow. Oh, were you looking at my Instagram? I think that's where you were seeing that. Okay. Yes. I did post a couple things on Instagram about Lightworkers working in the shadow. Yes. And that is not the main focus of our topic today. So thank you for joining, and know that I do have other classes that relate to that. And I have a lot of podcast episodes that relate to that a little bit more. So we're going to shift gears just a little bit. Is it okay with you? Go ahead and give me a thumbs up, either here or in the chat box. Is it okay with you if I share an invitation really quick, or just like mouth yes at me? Yes. Okay. I'm seeing head nods. Okay. I saw a yes. All right. Fantastic. Well, I do have an invitation for you. And I did mention this a little bit already. And Kathleen is coming to this training. And, there are other people registered who are not on this class who are coming to this training that is coming up in October. And this is October 10 through 13. So I know today we talked about what does it mean to be a light worker? Who are we as light workers? What practices and tools do we need for that to happen? And this training in October, this I Am Lightworker training, is a lot of this stuff. Every tool and every practice that I talked about here today in this class is something that I'm teaching in the context of this training. So it is 4 days. It's all day out at my favorite retreat center in Banks, Oregon. It is not an overnight. It's a come in for the day, and we'll have lunches included there, but then go back home to stay the night. And it's so good. It's all really, really good stuff. We'll be working with practices on the physical level. The first day is all embodiment and earth magic. The second day is all the mental, emotional, intuitive stuff. The third day is all of the soul practices. So working with soul retrieval, karma, higher self, working with the soul contracts and agreements. And then the fourth day is practice and activation and integration. So you will essentially get to spend 4 days in the woods connecting with your community, learning some incredible, powerful practices, and getting to put them into action immediately for yourself. Again, whether you choose to go out in the world and use this as a healer practitioner, if you do, great. If not, I guarantee you're going to get something useful out of it for yourself and for your non-healership expression of your unique lightworker frequency. So because you're here today, and because you took the time, and because you chose to join me for this, I have an invitation for you. If you submit your application within the next 24 hours, so no later than 1 o'clock Pacific time tomorrow, which is Wednesday, I would love to give you $100 off. And so that takes it, instead of our original price is either $11.97 or 3 payments of $437. There is a payment plan option. You would instead pay $10.97, so almost $1,100, $1,097, or 3 payments of $404. So my gift to you for being here today, $100 off if you submit your application within the next 24 hours. And so the link to do that, I'm going to copy and paste our application link right in the chat box, so you can just click straight over to it if you want to. Oops, did that go? To everyone. There we go. Okay. Do you see that? Someone give me a thumbs up if you see the link. Yeah? Okay, awesome. So that's the link for you. If you want to go check out the rest of the details, the entire curriculum is up on that page. You can see, again, we do shamanic, not only these practices of shamanic embodiment and corporeal intelligence, but also on the first day, working with a medicine wheel, working with earth magic, and on the first day. And then the second day, working not only with emotional alchemy, but also our intuition, and working with consciousness, and working with these other frequencies. And then the third day is all super high vibe soul stuff. So go check out the curriculum. Again, the application is that big pink button on there. You can't possibly miss it. And I look forward to reading it. And when I do see your application, again, within the next 24 hours, I'll send you an email with our next steps, and you get $100 off. Sound good? Yay.
So if you can't meet that timeline, can't attend, what is the next opportunity?
For this training?
Anything?
I don't know, honestly. Yeah, so this is the first time I've taught this as a 4-day training. Everything in this curriculum I've taught before, either in the context of other trainings, or I've done it as like a 2-day thing, or I've done it as within, I used to teach like a month, or not month, but like a several month long shamanic apprenticeship practice. And so all of these have been in my field for a long time, but I haven't ever done it as a 4-day. And this is part of my thing to try it out and see if it wants to be a 4-day thing. So I would love to see you there if it does work. If not, I can't guarantee if it's going to be a thing ever again. So just because I'm being present with how does this knowledge want to come through. So, or you can put it in an application anyway, and then we'll talk about it and see if we can get you in. Okay. Awesome. Any other questions about that training, that I Am Lightworker training? Or comments? Does it sound fun? Does it sound great? Maybe. How about, heck yeah, Michelle, it sounds amazing. What? Okay. No, if there are no other questions or comments, then go ahead and give me a little yay in the chat box if you're all complete. And then we're going to go ahead and sign off. So Ashley says, yay. Okay, great. You're welcome. You're welcome, Michelle. Awesome. Well, I'm so glad that you were here. Jamie says, thank you. You're welcome, everybody. You've got the link there. I'm going to send out an email. So here's our next step here. Brianna says, thank you. Awesome. I'm going to send you all an email since you were here, where you will have Heidi says, yes, sounds amazing. Thank you. Great to meet you. Awesome. I am really happy to meet you too. I'm glad that you were on here. And yeah, thanks for coming. So those of you in Portland, just a quick little heads up, since you're here right now, people watching later, this invitation will no longer be on the table. I do have a Lunar Alchemy event on Friday. So if you would like to come, then go ahead and either shoot me a message or sign up in Lightworker portal, and then you can come hang out with me in person and do some magic on Friday. And then for everybody, I'm so grateful that you were here. This was a lot of fun, and it was nice to just zoom out a little bit and get out of the realm of their particular practices. And so I hope that you're walking away with something, some answered questions and some inspiration, some fuel to go from here, and maybe even something that you didn't even know you needed. So, all right, y'all, I'm going to send you an email with that application link and then the recording of our class today, so you can go back and review and check in on some of those other pieces. I know I talk fast, and there was a lot of stuff there, and I referenced all these other classes. So I welcome you to go back and check it out. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later.